Hey guys, hope you are well. This is just Sam just recapping the sermon from Sunday, from some of you from a week last Sunday, from Colossians 1, and just giving you some things that you can discuss briefly in your life group together and pray into and chat about. Well, I preached from Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 to 23. I gave you some of the background of that, but really the passage focuses on, and we focused on, how Jesus is both unique and preeminent and supreme in every way, why we worship Jesus, really. And the first major point I made was about Jesus being the creator. That Jesus is one person of the triune God, the Father, Son and Holy Spirit, and he was there at the start of all things, creating all things. Everything was made through him and for him, and even now he sustains everything. These are amazing truths. The second thing we looked at was how Jesus was a recreator. As what Paul calls the firstborn from the dead, how he's kicked off this thing called new creation. How he makes us to be new creations like him and will resurrect us as he was resurrected. In fact, how he, through his new creation act of death and resurrection, will reconcile all of creation with God. And thirdly, we looked at how Jesus is the rescuer. He's both fully God and fully man, that awesome truth that's hard to grapple with. That he therefore is the only one who could rescue us, the only one who could rescue us from our sin, the only mediator and the only bridge between mankind and God. Well, I've got 4 questions for you, and I'll read each of them and then go through them one at a time, so you may want to choose from these. So the first thing we're going to look at is where you might be tempted to place your trust instead of Jesus. Secondly, I'm going to ask you to read the passage again and draw out some of these things, things that it says about Jesus. Thirdly, the question is, how is Jesus both, or why did Jesus need to come as both fully human and fully God? And then fourthly, how can we be more aware of Jesus' supremacy in our lives? So you might want to think about which of those are suitable for your group, but let's go through them again. So firstly then, where are you tempted to place your trust instead of Jesus? If that's a good one, helpful one for you, you might want to pause there and break into groups to talk about that. Secondly, I want you to read from Colossians 1, 15 to 23, the passage that we read. Read it together, read it slowly, and try together to pick out what it's actually telling us about Jesus. It's good to see it for yourself in the text. You might want to make some notes and discuss that. Do you agree with how I explained it? Thirdly then, why did Jesus come as both man and God? So if you're going to discuss that, you might want to pause it now, because I'm going to give you a little bit of an answer in a second just to help you with this slightly more technical question. So why don't you pause now? So just to give you some of my understanding of this, some of the reasons why Jesus needed to come as a human would be that he needed to face the same temptation to sin that we do and overcome it. That's a big part of the Bible story. If you remember, Israel often facing temptations to sin and not overcome it, but Jesus overcame. Jesus needed to be able to suffer, not just in his death on the cross, but also throughout his life with the situation that we have. He needed to know our weakness, needed to model the obedience to God the Father, and he needed to redeem the human condition to fulfill God's original plan for humanity. And these are some of the reasons why Jesus came as a human. Why did he come as God? Well, to bring salvation and rescue from God, because the Bible is clear that salvation comes from God alone, not from man. It needs to come from outside of ourselves. And by God coming himself in the person of Jesus, he could demonstrate his love for the world. And God is the only one in his infinite perfect being who could bear the infinite price of rebellion against him, the infinite price of our sin through his sacrificial death. Those would be some of the reasons that I would understand. You might have others. And the fourth question then you might want to discuss is, and this is really important to really apply, how then, bearing all of this in mind, how then do we be more aware of the supremacy of Jesus in our lives? How do we worship him more? How do we put ourselves in a situation where we know and remember these things, where we're clinging to the hope of the gospel and the sovereignty and supremacy of Christ? Well, some big questions there for you to discuss. I hope you have a fantastic time doing that, and I hope to see you all soon. Goodbye.